Well,
God, you got really quiet really fast.
well, kind of just flat or slightly round as a shape, then I am in shape, yes. Need to get in the weight room a little bit more. Certainly don't run as much as I used to, but, you yourself, Paul, were outstanding runner in the day. I don't see you
yes.
training.
Our careers are clearly comparable. Clearly comparable.
I would have liked to have raced you in high school, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I think we're of the same general era of kind of mid '80s high school track and field. And in Oregon, I was racing against a gentleman, Gus and Vela, who was out of McKay High School in Portland. Actually went on to be a multiple-time Olympian for Equatorial Guinea, and ran at Stanford for I think a year, but was kind of the mainstay of the sprint crew. So we're all kind of racing in his shadow. But yeah, a lot of good memories, and this is really, as a segue back to here to Des Moines, I mean, I think that's the beauty. It's the highest participatory sport in the country. Most all of us have a connection to the sport, albeit some of us on this broadcast call have not seen the top of an Olympic podium. But it's still an important part of our kind of formative years in sport, and to have been involved in so many of these events over the years is really special. And, we talk about the heritage, and Mike talked about his first visit to the Drake Relays when he saw Ralph Mann racing on this track. And you think about the very first episode of ABC's Wide World of Sports that featured live coverage of both the Drake Relays and the Penn Relays as part of that broadcast. So national television front and center for both of those events in the early 60s. And here today with all the new tech, we can take over the airwaves for 12 hours and just throw at you non-stop track and field. It's kind of the cool, this sport is really set up for kind of the live streaming environment because you get as much track and field as you can handle. As we look now at this start list for the women's 4x1600m relay, it was a runaway for Iowa State on the men's side as we look for this one to maybe be a little bit more comparable. We also see what this means to a lot of the collegiate programs around the country as we got squads from Minnesota, Iowa State, Notre Dame, Utah, Oregon State is here from out west, Indiana State, South Dakota, St. Louis, Iowa, St. Thomas of Minnesota, Illinois, Chicago, Iowa Central, Tulane, and Culver Stockton out of Missouri. But we settle in for the first leg of 4 in the 1,600-meter relay here at the Drake Relays. Men's race won by Iowa State. And we'll see what unfolds here over the course of these 4 legs. Notre Dame holds the record. They set that a year ago, 18:44.15. And Siona Chisholm of Notre Dame has the baton for the Fighting Irish up near the front in the early going. Utah countering with Clara Mayfield. And Illinois, Chicago running in third. Next to them, Indiana State, and then Oregon State in that mix there, and the All Black wearing hip number 5. So settling in for the racing here, Dan. These relays, I love the variety, right? You got shuttle relays, sprint medley relays, and then these long ones as well, and a few of the traditional ones we'll see 4x1, 4x4, but wouldn't be a relay without a lot of team-based competition.
Well, in the 4x1600 meters or the 4x mile, this is just an opportunity for your distance squads to come together, and this is a fun race, certainly. I can't help but think about the squad up there in the Pacific Northwest. What could the men's University of Washington team put together right now? What are they going to be able to do next year, certainly, with some new recruits coming in and being outstanding 1,500-meter runners, 1,600-meter runner, milers. But you said it, Notre Dame holds the record here. They take a lot of pride in the fact that they can put 4 outstanding women on the track at this distance. Keep an eye on Oregon State as well. Oregon State's had a good meet. They've shown out very, very well. They wore the orange yesterday, so they were easy to spot. But today they are in the black with the orange beaver. There you see them in 4th position.
Utah, Illinois, Chicago, Oregon State.
I don't think the distance runners mind the cool weather here today, Paul. A little bit windy, maybe, but you know, we were getting spoiled over the last couple days.
Yeah, you mentioned Oregon State. Coach Louis Quintana spoke to our friends at DieStat coming into this meet. Really excited about being able to bring that contingent of runners. A women's-only program at Oregon State, which, as we look to the future of collegiate track and field, that may be the reality for a number of programs. And Quintana has done a nice job of building something special in Corvallis. Also has built a great infrastructure there. They've got a full competitive stadium there up in Corvallis, about 35 miles north of Eugene, and trying to put that confidence and that quality of roster on display here on the Blue Oval in Des Moines. But right now it is Notre Dame and Siona Chisholm, who was part of that quartet that set the meet record last year, trying to set the tone. Utah there in second, Illinois, Chicago, Oregon State, and Iowa State. Iowa State trying to sweep this collegiate university division as the men won in a runaway just about 45 minutes ago. 1 lap to go here in leg one.
Well, 3:35 for Chisholm there at the 1,200-meter mark. Let's see what she can do on the last lap. And she has really put the distance between her and the rest of the group here on that third lap. Well, let's keep an eye on Abigail Prodreyer as she tries to make a move and close the gap from Oregon State there. There you see where the number 5 on her left vest.
Trying to narrow that gap right now with Notre Dame and Chisholm.
And of course, Oregon State still sporting that Pac-12 crest on their chest. The current remaining squads from that shift in collegiate alliances left Oregon State and Washington State sort of representing the Conference of Champions, and representing here on the track in Des Moines, trying to close the gap on Notre Dame. Maya Beckler, the talented Canadian for Oregon State, will get the baton, and Isabella Laurie of Notre Dame steps into the role of the leader here for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
With Bachelor. Warriors for the Utes, back in third. Illinois, Chicago. Emma Gonzalez and Iowa State with Olivia Verdi.
Laurie was part of the Notre Dame squad at this last NCAA cross-country championships, already getting some good experience in her freshman campaign. And here now racing and trying to keep Notre Dame in front, and Beckler
Boers will run this leg for Iowa. Indiana State with Hallie Miller.
was a standout
Your leaders right here on the front stretch.
high school prep was Beckler,
Notre Dame. And Oregon State.
as she joined the Oregon State squad at a Vancouver, British Columbia
Utah and Illinois, Chicago.
under 20 Canadian Nationals qualifier 2 times, and the provincial high school champion in Vancouver twice in both the 800 and the 1,500 meters. And she has now done her job. She's closed the gap on a Laurie of Notre Dame, and is doing it so patiently here, Dan. You don't have to make up all the ground when you've got 4 laps of running here, and now Beckler can just lay in wait as Oregon State and Notre Dame has kind of broken away here for this early and second leg of the 4x1600.
Well, it's interesting. You say Beckler is from Canada up there. You're seeing just a handful more, I think just a little bit more athletes coming down from Canada competing at the collegiate level. Certainly, Breanne Tyson, the Canadian that came down and competed at the University of Oregon. But Canada has a great university system. They got outstanding track and field up there in the university system.
Yeah, you had Christopher Morales-Williams, of course, at the University of Georgia, the current Canadian record holder at 400 meters. Andre DeGrasse ran at USC. Marco Arop ran at Mississippi State, now an Olympic medalist and reigning world champion in the 800 meters. But y'all go back, of course, Dan, Harry Jerome, legendary Canadian sprinter, voted one of the greatest athletes of the second half of the 20th century in Canada. So a lot of history from Canada. And of course, Runner Space, long-standing partnership with Athletics Canada, bringing live coverage of many of those top Canadian meets. And the summer will bring us a number of top-flight meets that many Americans will go up and use as precursors to competition at the U.S. Championships in late August. In fact, some events in places like Edmonton and then the appropriately named Harry Jerome meet in July will set the stage for those athletes to prepare for their national championship, try to make the U.S. and Canadian squads for the World Championships in Tokyo in September. So Maya Beckler has given Oregon State the lead, but has not been able to shake loose Notre Dame for the moment as they do battle down the back stretch, nearing 9 minutes elapsed on the clock here of the second leg of the Women's Collegiate University Division 4x4. Ruby Broadbent is going to get the baton for the Beavers, and Emily Covert will get the baton for Notre Dame. And if Maya Beckler is the pride of mainland Vancouver, well, Ruby Broadbent is the pride of Vancouver Island. So a pair of Canadians trying to help this quartet of Oregon State win this 4x1600 meters, but Alori now breaking just ever so slightly away from Beckler. And so Covert's going to have a little bit of distance on Broadbent as they go to leg number 3.
Well, Alori, the freshman, she did a really nice job there in the last 150 meters, and hope that shows her that she's got a little bit more of the tank. She maybe could have pushed on that third lap just a little bit more. But when you are the meet record holder, and you got some pride out there, you certainly want to come here to the Drake Relays, show out well, get another title.
But it's Notre Dame and Oregon State out front. Long way to go in this race.
So Emily Covert, who transferred from Tennessee, where she was a scorer for the Vols in both the 5,000 and 10,000 meters outdoors last year, third in the 10, 5 in the 5,000. So this is a much easier and shorter distance for her, perhaps, but now representing the Fighting Irish, and Broadbent very comfortable there on the inside rail, just kind of sitting behind and letting Covert do the work. Wind's been out of the north here on the main straightaway, pushing the sprinters at their back, so the advantage for Broadbent is more on the back straight, when Covert may have to do a little bit more of the work to cut into the wind as they work their way down this second lap of 4 on leg number 3. Utah is back in third, but they're 8 seconds back of Notre Dame and Oregon State. Iowa State even further back as they're 24 seconds off the lead. Now Utah in view, but no sign of the rest of the field, as this really has been a impressive run by Notre Dame and Oregon State as they do the battle and set the stage for the final leg. But still a couple of laps here to go in leg number 3. Covert and Broadbent as they make the turn for home. See the eyes of Covert straight forward, focused on what's ahead and not what's behind. Broadbent looks very comfortable in second and will sit on the back shoulder of Covert for what appears to be another lap. This one the third of 4 in leg number 3.
Well, you said it, Paul. Ruby looks really comfortable sitting there in that second position. We'll see if she makes a move with about 200 meters to go. Covert up front, though, has done a really nice job. Got a little bit more of an upright running style, so she's going to get hit by the wind there just a little bit. You see her glance up at the big board. See that somebody's right behind him, and that's certainly a skill that these athletes kind of have to learn. They're not used to glancing up at the big board, but it is there, and it is helpful to let you know that somebody might be bearing down on you.
Saw McKaylee Caesar running solo as she's in that lonely position, chasing the leaders, but well ahead of the rest of the competition. Now Covert going to the arms a little bit. 13 minutes elapsed on the clock. 1 lap to go. You can see the flags of the officials there at the finish line really blowing from north to south. So going to face the winds here one more time. And if Covert can get ahead, then Broadbent's going to feel the wind maybe for the first time on this last lap. So setting the stage for the anchor leg, it'll be Gretchen Farley of Notre Dame and Ainsley Heron of Oregon State, as those two squads almost reaching the back of this field of collegiate and university programs at the Drake Relays. And now for the first time, Covert with a little bit of daylight, but just as I say that, Broadbent reacts, and now with all kinds of run and with the wind at her back, gonna fly and slingshot off the final turn. But Covert trying to cut her off a little bit, getting around traffic as they're both into lane 2. This a critical exchange here as we get ready for the anchor leg of the 4x1600.
Gretchen Farley's going to anchor for Notre Dame, the sophomore. Ainsley Heron on the anchor leg for Oregon State. They're in the MPFS mile champion back there for the Beavers.
And Dan, you know, you have so much eager anticipation for that final exchange in a typical relay, which would normally be 4x4, but then we've got 4 more laps to go. So we're back to kind of waiting to see how this will unfold as the sophomore Gretchen Farley takes the baton for Notre Dame, part of their quartet that finished 3rd at the ACC Indoor Distance Medley Relay, and was on their cross-country team in Madison, Wisconsin a year ago. Talented steeplechaser as well, 10th in the ACC Outdoor Championships last May.
Notre Dame and Oregon State, then Utah. Iowa State with McKinley Wheeler.
Well, Paul, you're absolutely right. I was going to say, you know, you talk about just you get the baton and you got all kinds of excitement, but yeah, you do have 4 laps to go. And it's interesting, in the world of track and field, a word that coaches use a lot is patience. Be patient. You know, be patient on your stride. Be patient on your movements. You don't want to get going too quick that you don't have anything to finish with. But the Notre Dame Gretchen Farley there, she went 4:40 indoors in the mile, so solid miler for her there. You see the number 3 on the bib, 43:16. But you heard the announcer call Ainsley Heron. She's the Mount Pacific indoor mile champion, so she looks really comfortable there, sitting in second position. And I think these two will just play cat and mouse all the way to the finish. There's no reason for somebody to take off with over 2 laps to go here. They can work together and then race it out the last 300 meters.
Yeah, Heron having a very good season so far. She's steadily progressed in her 1,500-meter PR, now a best of 4:19.11 that was at the Oregon Team Invite, which was a new concept event last week in Eugene, where 7 collegiate squads from around the country competed in a scoring event. Look at the debris that's blowing here onto the track at Drake Stadium. A little bit of a swirling wind now as we move past noon local time, Central Time in Des Moines, Iowa, but no change at the front with Farley and Heron 11 seconds up on 3rd as Utah comes into view. Iowa is officially in fourth as Utah has just lapped a squad here on the back stretch.
The leaders are right here coming off the turn. They run together.
And so this will be the 6,000-meter split for Notre Dame and Oregon State. South Dakota ahead of them, so maneuvering through some traffic here as they'll hear the bell. 1 lap to go for a Drake Relays title. Notre Dame trying to win it again for a second consecutive year, and Oregon State out from the west trying to add their name to the list of winners here in the 2025 Drake Relays. Notre Dame and Oregon State head to the backstretch for the final time.
Well, this always gets interesting when you're passing lapped runners and everybody's really working hard and running their own race, so they're not going to move out of the inside. Had this been at 10,000 meters, maybe those athletes would move to the outside. But a little bit of navigation for the leaders.
Yeah, if you're Herron, you almost want to push at a moment where she can potentially trap Farley behind one of those straggling runners here. But now Herron just trying to stay within striking distance of Notre Dame. Here they come to the final stretch. Herron's going to go wide, looks down, goes to the legs and to the arms. And look at this battle. You don't think it matters for these two squads to win a Drake Relays crown? Oregon State and Notre Dame, and the Beavers take the victory in Des Moines. What a finish for Ainsley Herron, as Oregon State will win it in 1904-83.
Wow. And Ainsley Herron would go down hard as she stumbled across the line, but a clear victory there for the Oregon State Beavers. Herron just, I don't know if she's tired or she's hurt down there. I think she's just tired. She's rolled up now and sitting up. But a nice last 100 meters for that young lady, Ainsley Herron. And what a battle. Nice.
Yeah, just 0.05 of a second separating first and second. Utah picks up third ahead of Iowa State. The Cyclones winning the men's race. They get fourth in the women's race. But the Oregon State Beavers, the team of Perderi, Beckler, Broadbent, and Herron, take the win here. It was a good start for Notre Dame as Chisholm gave them the advantage, but Beckler then got Oregon State back into the mix, only to have Notre Dame respond. And then the Beavers were perfectly happy after that halfway point, Dan, I think just to let Notre Dame stay in front. And you only have to be on the finish line first at the end here as we see that lean at the tape.
Yep, and with wins like this today, you didn't figure there were going to be any record-breaking runs, and so those two teams could just stay together and battle it out. And you knew it was going to come down to the last 100 meters, and Ainsley Herron, she started to go to the arms about 120 meters as they were passing lapped runners. And Gretchen Farley, she made a nice run, and she responded to that move by Ainsley Herron. But the Beavers would get the victory by the slightest margin, certainly. That's a big win for them, and you want to come home, you know, whether at the Penn Relays and you get yourself a pinwheel, or at the Drake Relays, you get yourself a flag. You know, a victory here means a lot and could mean a lot to these teams from a confidence level going the rest of the outdoor season.
So the last few teams coming in before the hurdle crew does their work. We'll transition in a moment to the first round of the women's 100-meter hurdles, as we'll have 4 heats with automatic advancers coming from the winners of each of the 4 heats, and the next 4 fastest times go to the finals. You look at those final results from the 4x1600 relay, and still one team out on the course here, so still a few moments before the hurdle crew can do their job, so a little bit of a delay before that next event on the track.
Please join Viridian Credit Union in honoring all of the great Drake Relays volunteers.
This is Culver Stockton of Missouri wrapping it up, and been struck by this all day long, Dan. Really appreciation for all teams competing, whether you're first to the line or in this case the last to complete. Appreciation and support for these athletes, all excited to be here and trying to compete at their best.
Well, I think one of the first things you learn in the sport of track and field, Paul, is giving a great effort and finishing. Finish what you start, and it doesn't matter the distance, whether it's 100 meters, whether it's 10,000 meters. And sometimes, I can tell you in the world of the decathlon, I felt as much pride crossing the line in the 1,500 meters, finishing 7th and 8th place as there were times when I finished in first place, because getting to the end is really the ultimate goal here in the sport of track and field.
So there is the look at the final results in the women's 4x1600m relay at the University College Division. Congratulations to Oregon State. Comes to Des Moines and has to beat the defending champions to claim their Drake crown. As we'll transition now to the straightaway and these women's 100-meter hurdles. Not the most ideal of conditions, Dan.